My name is Bernie Rausch. I started at NASA in June 1962. In December 1963, NASA sent me to UT Austin for a year of NASA-sponsored graduate study. Soon after I returned in December 1964, I was asked if I could produce a digital model of the visible universe on film for use in mission design documents and astronaut training. Something like this had not been done before, so I started looking at what resources I would need to do this job. This would involve utilizing a time history of the Sun and Moon positions, which we already had, and obtaining a catalog of the stars that are visible to the naked eye, data defining the shorelines of the Earth's land masses, and all of the prominent features on the visible side of the Moon. In addition, there was a requirement to construct 3D models of any spacecraft that could appear in the astronaut's field of view. I got a star catalog from AT&T's Bell Labs and the shoreline data from the Naval Weapons Lab. A digital model of the visible lunar surface was not available, so I got a big map that we were going to have to digitize by hand. Graphic terminals were not available yet in the mid-60s, so the pictures to be produced by this program were going to have to be created on a microfilm output device that was designed to produce text output on 35mm film. However, that device could plot points and straight lines, so that is what I had available to work with. Once I had developed the mathematical model, programmed it, and started producing pictures, it occurred to me that if I created a whole bunch of pictures at short intervals while simulating a spacecraft trajectory, that would look pretty much like a movie. I started creating short movie segments in 1965. Additional segments were added over time until the final movie was finished in 1970. The first computer-generated movie was created by a researcher at AT&T in 1963. So this is one of the very first computer-generated movies ever created. Keep in mind that this movie was created by a program that was not designed to produce movies, and the output was created on a microfilm device that was not designed to create movies, hence the jitter in the pictures. Also, Snoopy and Charlie Brown make appearances in the film. The flight controllers and mission control started a tradition where anyone who did something that was particularly outstanding would get a Golden Snoopy award. And on the Apollo 10 mission, the lunar lander was named Snoopy and the command module was Charlie Brown. Snoopy is holding a sign that says, "Here is your plotting." Since the original film was 35mm, and I ended up showing the movie at computer conferences around the country, the Photo Lab copied it onto 16mm film for portability. In 2019, I had the film transferred into this video format, but it is now in a highly portable format. NASA still has the 35mm film, but when I retired, I kept the 16mm copy for myself. It is the only copy in existence, so I felt it was important to have it preserved in video format. So with that introduction, here we go. The star catalog that I got from Bell Labs contained 1,078 stars. It included each star's position and visual magnitude. The visual magnitude is a numerical value indicating the star's brightness. The magnitude would be used to compute the number of times a star was to be repeatedly plotted so that the image would mimic what an astronomer would see through the telescope. Of these 1,078 stars, the astronauts were required to memorize a small number of them, and those are shown in the second segment, along with their names, which are not readable in the video. This is a very crude simulation of what the astronauts saw when rendezvousing with the Agena booster. The picture is centered on the line of sight from the Gemini to the Agena, so the motion of the stars shows the motion of the line of sight against the star background during the Gemini's approach towards the Agena. This simulation is taken directly from actual mission data, but is not shown in real time. It is pretty crude, but it was gee whiz stuff in the 60s. Three weeks before Gemini 12 was scheduled to lift off, an astronomer noticed that there would be a total eclipse of the sun during the mission. He asked me if I could get the spacecraft into the region of totality so the astronauts could photograph it with no atmospheric distortion. I had very little time, so the moon, sun, and Earth are shown as solid disks. The disk with the whiskers is the sun. My program computed the area where the moon's shadow would project onto a sphere at the spacecraft's orbital altitude, and my colleague did the maneuver calculations to rendezvous the spacecraft with that area at the right time. Everything worked perfectly, except the spacecraft got there at the wrong time. It was only 2 days before liftoff that I realized I had overlooked the speed of light. With that correction, we were right in the middle at the right time. The segment began at sunrise as seen from the spacecraft. For the astronauts to be able to know what they would be able to see out of the windows, I had to overlay the outlines of the windows onto the star background. This segment shows the Lunar Module Command Pilot's window outline. As the picture pans down and to the left, the LEM's attitude thrusters can be seen in the field of view. This segment shows the view from Earth orbit. The eclipse starts over the east coast of South America, passes over Australia and Mexico and the southern U.S. The scene then repeats with latitude and longitude grid lines shown. As we pass over Africa, Orion's belt and the brightest stars in the sky can be seen moving upward from the horizon. Sometimes the user wanted to see a quick and dirty preview of what would be seen without having to wait for the film to be processed. To provide this, I would compute the character position on the 132 column paper where the point was to be plotted, then print the appropriate character at that location. Challenging to do and really rough resolution, but recognizable. The users wanted to be able to know whether the portions of the Earth or Moon being shown were in sunlight or darkness. This view is from equatorial geosynchronous orbit looking down at the Earth and shows the time from sunset to sunrise over the U.S. I won't go into detail as to how this was done, but it was a real bear to construct the limb using only flat planes, then only showing those planes that were visible and not the planes on the other side. This is a simulation using real mission data of what Pete Conrad saw through the command pilot window during powered descent to the lunar surface. The funny looking three-legged thing on the surface at the end of the segment is the shadow of the limb projected onto the surface. When the limb was ascending from the lunar surface to rendezvous with the command module, things just happened to align such that Mike Collins could get a picture showing the eagle, the surface of the moon, and the Earth in the background. This segment shows the actual photograph followed by my simulation of the event. When Apollo 8 was coming around from the backside of the moon on December 25, 1968, they happened to see the Earth rising above the horizon of the moon. They scrambled for a camera and got what is considered to be the iconic photograph for the entire manned space program. This simulates that picture, again from real mission data. This very crude simulation shows departure from the moon looking down at the moon as it recedes into the distance. We then swing around to see the Earth as we approach, coming in over Australia at daybreak, then ends as we approach Florida on the way to splashdown in the Atlantic. The original shuttle design concept had a reusable booster that would land like an airplane to be reused. This concept was not used, but this shows what it would look like for the orbiter separating from the booster as the booster starts its descent back to Earth. And here comes Charlie.